My mailman stopped me at the front door. "Do you know someone has been going through your garage every Tuesday?" I installed a hidden camera, and what I saw 3 days later changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Please like this video and stay with me until the very end. And I'd love to know. Drop a comment telling me what city or state you're listening from. It means more than you know to hear how far these stories travel. I had lived in the same house in Dayton, Ohio, for 22 years. The kind of house where you knew every sound, which floorboard creaked near the hallway, how the back door always stuck a little in humid weather, the particular way the furnace clicked on at night. My husband, Robert, and I had raised our son here, painted these walls twice, planted the rose bushes along the driveway together. When Robert passed away 4 years ago from a heart attack he never saw coming, I stayed. My son, Daniel, thought I should sell. He said the house was too big for one person. He said the yard was too much work. He said a lot of things that felt more like suggestions for his own comfort than concern for mine. But this was my home. I was 67 years old, not frail, not confused, not ready to be managed. I still drove myself to the grocery store, still met my friend Carol for coffee every Tuesday morning, still grew tomatoes in the backyard each summer. My life was quieter without Robert. Yes, but it was mine. That all started to unravel on a gray morning in early November. I had just come back from my Tuesday coffee with Carol, groceries in the trunk, and my mailman, Gary, was walking up the driveway. Gary had delivered our mail for 11 years. He knew me by name, knew to put the larger packages on the side porch, knew Robert had passed and always asked how I was holding up. That Tuesday, he had a look on his face I hadn't seen before, a hesitation. Like a man deciding whether to say something he wasn't sure he should. "Mrs. Evelyn," he said, using the name the whole neighborhood called me. I don't want to overstep, but I've been noticing something for a few weeks now. He paused, shifting the mail bundle in his hands. "Someone has been going through your garage on Tuesday mornings. When you're gone, I see a car I don't recognize, pull into your driveway, stay for maybe 30 minutes, then leave. Always on Tuesdays. Always after you go." I stood there holding a bag of groceries, feeling the cold work its way into my coat. "A car you don't recognize?" "Dark blue sedan." "Same one each time?" I didn't want to assume. I thought maybe you had a cleaning service or someone helping with the yard. But it bothered me. "You always lock up before you leave. I can see that. And I've never seen you let anyone in on those days." He looked at me steadily. "I just thought you should know." I thanked him. I carried my groceries inside. I stood in my kitchen and tried to find a reasonable explanation. The garage. Robert had kept his woodworking tools there. A table saw, a lathe, power drills, equipment worth thousands of dollars that I had no use for but couldn't bring myself to sell. His workbench still had his handwriting on sticky notes, measurements he'd written down and never finished using. I went in there sometimes just to stand near his things. I also kept filing boxes in the garage. Old tax records, insurance documents, the deed to the house. Robert had organized everything into labeled boxes on metal shelving units along the back wall. I trusted that system because Robert had built it. Could someone be going through those boxes? I thought about the small things I'd noticed but explained away over the past 2 months. The garage door that seemed unlocked when I was certain I'd locked it. A filing box that seemed slightly pulled forward on its shelf, like it had been moved and replaced. A smell in the garage, something faint, like a woman's perfume that I'd chalked up to a neighbor's open window. I had dismissed all of it. Because what was the alternative? That someone had a key to my garage? Only 2 people had ever had that key besides me. Robert, who was gone, and Daniel, my son. who had a copy from years ago when he used to help with yard work before he got busy with his own life in Columbus. I sat down at the kitchen table and told myself I was being irrational, but I couldn't make the feeling go away. That evening, I called Daniel. Just to talk, I told myself. Just to hear his voice and find some normal footing. He answered on the third ring, distracted, something playing in the background. Mom, hey. What's up? Just checking in. How's everything in Columbus? Good. Busy. Hey, I've been meaning to talk to you actually. I've been doing some research on senior living communities near me. There's a really nice one in Dublin. It's not a nursing home. It's more like independent living with some support. I think you'd be surprised. I felt something cool settle in my chest. Not the first time he'd brought this up. Not the second either. I'm not looking for independent living, Daniel. I have a home. Mom, the house is a lot to maintain. Dad would have wanted you to be comfortable. I am comfortable. I kept my voice even. He said he would try. He wouldn't. He hadn't been back to Dayton in almost 8 months. After I hung up, I sat with the silence for a long time. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find out what was happening in my garage, not by asking questions that would get me patted on the head and reassured. I'd seen an advertisement for a small security camera, the kind that ran on a battery, connected to your phone, and could record continuously for 12 hours. My neighbor's daughter had recommended one after a package was stolen from her porch. I'd saved the advertisement in a drawer, thinking I'd never need it. I found that drawer, and I called the number. A technician named Marcus came out the following afternoon. He was patient and clear, walking me through the app on my phone, testing the connection. He helped me find a position on the garage's upper shelf, tucked between 2 stacked storage bins, where the camera had a clear sightline to the entire space, both the door from the driveway and the shelving units along the back wall. You'll get a motion alert on your phone whenever something moves, Marcus told me. How long does the battery last? 16 hours on a full charge. You want it running all day Tuesday, charge it Monday night. I thanked him, and he left. I stood in the garage alone for a moment, looking at the space Robert had loved so much. His tools hanging on their pegboard hooks, his workbench covered in a thin layer of dust I hadn't been able to bring myself to clean. Then I noticed something I had missed before. The filing box labeled property deed and insurance had been moved. Not much. Maybe 2 inches forward from the wall. But I knew exactly how Robert had organized these shelves. Flush against the wall. Labels facing out precisely. He had been particular about that. I had never moved this box. I opened it with trembling hands. Everything looked intact. The house deed, the homeowner's insurance policy, car insurance papers. I rifled through carefully, comparing the order against what I remembered. Then I found it, a sheet of paper near the bottom that shouldn't have been there. It was a photocopy of my signature. My own signature, printed on a generic form, isolated, like someone had scanned a document that contained my signature and printed only that portion for practice or for reference. I set the paper down on Robert's workbench. My hand was steady. I don't know why, but my hand was completely steady. Someone wasn't just browsing through my garage. They were preparing to forge something. I slept very little that Monday night. I charged the camera fully, triple-checked the angle and the motion alert settings on my phone, and went through my Tuesday routine exactly as usual. Left for coffee with Carol at 9:15. Sat at the cafe, my phone face up on the table, and tried to hold a conversation about Carol's grandchildren while watching the screen. At 10:53, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Carol saw my face change. Evelyn? What is it? I'll explain later, I said. I promise, I'll explain. I watched the small thumbnail image on my phone. A figure moving inside my garage. I pressed the live view button with shaking fingers, and the screen filled with real-time footage. A woman I didn't recognize. 40-something, well-dressed, dark blazer, hair pulled back. She moved through the garage like someone who had been there before. Straight to the shelving units. Straight to the property filing box. Then a second person came in from the doorway. I knew this one. It was Kevin. My son, Daniel's longtime friend. They'd grown up together, played football together in high school. Kevin had been at Robert's funeral, had hugged me, and said if I ever needed anything, to call. Kevin had a real estate license. Kevin had started his own property management company in Columbus a few years back. She's at her Tuesday coffee, Kevin said to the woman. He didn't lower his voice. He spoke like a man who had done this many times and had no reason to be careful. We've got at least an hour. The woman was already leafing through the filing box. The power of attorney template I drafted should be fine. Once she signs, and she will sign, the way Daniel frames it, we can list the house within 60 days. February. At the latest. Kevin leaned against the workbench. Robert's workbench. Daniel's worried she's getting suspicious. She won't do anything. Daniel says she's been forgetful, confused, getting worse since the husband died. The woman looked up briefly. Grief does that to people her age. Makes them easy. I pressed pause on the live feed. I sat in that cafe booth, my coffee going cold, and understood everything with a clarity that felt almost physical. Daniel was trying to take my house. Not through force, through paperwork, through a forged power of attorney that would give him legal authority over my finances and property while I was still alive. He had recruited Kevin with that woman, probably a paralegal or notary, to prepare the documents. And he had been feeding them information about my comings and goings, my emotional state since Robert's death, his version of my mental decline. To make it all seem justified, my son, Carol, was watching me with wide eyes. Evelyn, please, tell me what's happening. Something I should have seen coming, I said. But I see it now. I did not go home that Tuesday. I drove straight from the cafe to the office of my attorney, Patricia Holloway, who had handled Robert's estate. I had known Patricia for 12 years. She was 60 herself. Sharp, and not a woman who wasted time. I showed her the camera footage on my phone. The conversation in the garage. The photocopy of my signature. Patricia watched without interrupting. When it ended, she looked at me. Evelyn, she said, this is elder financial abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud. I know what it is. What I need to know is what I can do about it. First, change your garage locks tonight. Change your house locks too, if you haven't already. Second, save every second of that footage to a backup. Third, and this is important, do not confront anyone. Not Daniel, not Kevin, not this woman, until we know the full scope of what they were preparing to file. Can we find out what documents they were drafting? If they've filed anything preliminary with the county? Yes. I'll start pulling records today. She paused. Does Daniel know you're suspicious? He knows nothing. As far as he's concerned, I'm a grieving 67-year-old woman who misses her husband and can't manage her own property. Patricia looked at me with something close to a smile. Then, let's use that. Over the next 10 days, I learned the shape of what had been planned. Patricia pulled a preliminary estate management filing. Daniel had submitted not yet actionable, but preparatory, citing concerns about my ability to make sound financial decisions. It listed Kevin's real estate firm as a proposed property agent. It had been submitted with a statement from Daniel describing my increasing confusion and isolation and inability to maintain the property. He had even obtained a letter from a doctor I had not visited in over a year, a doctor, Patricia determined, who was a college friend of Kevin's. The letter claimed I had shown signs of mild cognitive impairment based on a phone consultation that had never taken place. I had no idea any of this had been set in motion. They built a paper case before they even approached you, Patricia told me. The forged power of attorney was going to be the final step. They needed your signature on a document that Daniel could then use to override your property decisions. How close were they? 2, maybe 3 weeks from presenting it to you. My guess is Daniel was going to visit soon. Frame it as helping you organize finances. Make it seem routine. You'd have signed something without knowing what it really authorized. I thought about Daniel on the phone, mentioning that independent living community in Dublin, measuring my resistance, testing the ground. Can we stop them? We can do more than stop them. I spent that weekend feeling the full weight of what my son had done. Not frailty, not weakness, just grief. The clean, terrible grief of seeing something you made and loved choose cruelty. Robert would have been devastated. I let myself sit with that for 2 days. On Monday morning, I got up and got to work. Patricia filed an official fraud complaint with the county recorder's office regarding the fabricated medical letter. She also contacted the Ohio State Medical Board about the doctor who had signed the fraudulent assessment. I installed a second camera, this one covering the front porch and driveway, and I copied all footage to 3 separate external drives. One I kept. One I gave to Patricia. One I gave to Gary, my mailman, who had started this whole thing, and who, it turned out, was glad to be trusted with something important. I also made one more call. My neighbor's son, Brian Kowalski, was a licensed social worker who specialized in elder protection cases. His mother had mentioned him to me months ago after seeing something on the news. I had stored his number without thinking I'd use it. I used it now. Brian came over on a Wednesday afternoon and spent 3 hours with me. He reviewed the footage, the documents, the timeline. He asked me careful questions about my memory, my daily routine, my decision-making, not condescending questions, real ones, the kind that acknowledged I was a competent adult navigating a serious situation. Mrs. Evelyn, he said finally, what's been done to you has a formal name. It's called financial elder abuse, combined with undue influence, the deliberate undermining of a person's sense of competence to make them easier to control. The fact that you caught it, documented it, and sought legal counsel this quickly is not the behavior of someone with cognitive decline. That's clarity. That's strength. Will that matter in court? I'd like to bring in a colleague of mine, Dr. Angela Park, a neuropsychologist. She conducts formal cognitive assessments whose results are admissible in legal proceedings. If Daniel's team tries to use that fraudulent doctor's letter, a proper evaluation from Dr. Park will destroy it completely. When can she see me? She has an opening Thursday. Dr. Park arrived Thursday afternoon with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this work for 20 years. 3 hours of memory tests, problem-solving sequences, language evaluations, orientation questions. She didn't rush, and she didn't talk down to me. She treated me, as Brian had, like someone capable of directing her own life. Her report came back the following Tuesday, above average on every cognitive metric for my age group. No indicators of impairment. Sharp reasoning and memory recall consistent with a healthy, independent adult. She wrote the report in language designed to withstand legal challenge. Daniel called that Thursday evening. His voice was warm in the way it got when he wanted something. Mom, I've been thinking. I'd like to come down to Dayton this weekend. Just the 2 of us. Go through some of Dad's things in the garage, maybe look at some paperwork together. I've been worried about you having everything organized. I held the phone and thought about every Tuesday morning he had enabled strangers to walk through my garage while I sat drinking coffee and talking about gardening with Carol. "That sounds nice," I said. "Come Saturday." "Great. I'll bring Kevin. He can help with the heavy." "Just you," I said pleasantly. "It'll be nicer with just family." A brief pause. He came Saturday. He sat across from me at the kitchen table with that same warm, careful expression, and he began the conversation I imagine he had rehearsed many times. He talked about how hard it must be to manage alone. He talked about how the property taxes on the house were going up. He talked about how he'd found a lovely financial advisor who helped people in my situation simplify their affairs. Then he slid a document across the table. "It's just a general power of attorney," he said, "for practical things. So I can help you if something ever happens, and you can't. I know what a power of attorney does, Daniel." He smiled carefully. "Of course you do. I just thought it made sense to. I also know about the filing you submitted to the county recorder in September, and about Dr. Farrell's letter, which your friend Kevin arranged, and about the woman you brought to my garage to prepare forged documents." Daniel's smile stayed on his face for 3 full seconds before it disappeared. "Mom, I have video footage of every Tuesday visit to my garage since November. I have your preliminary estate filing. I have Dr. Park's cognitive evaluation, which was conducted last week and will hold up in any court in this state. I have my attorney, who has already filed a fraud complaint. And I have a social worker who specializes in exactly this kind of case." He stood up. "You're misunderstanding what was happening." "Then explain it to my attorney." "Her number is on the card on the table." I didn't move. I sat at Robert's kitchen table with my hands folded, looking at my son. "Get out of my house, Daniel, and tell Kevin and his colleague that whatever they were planning to file is already known to the county recorder, the medical board, and my legal team." Daniel left without the document. He didn't speak. He walked to his car and drove away, and I watched from the window until he was gone. Then I called Patricia and told her it was time to move forward. The legal process took 4 months. Patricia was thorough and unrelenting. The fraudulent medical letter resulted in Dr. Farrell surrendering his license to avoid prosecution. Kevin and the paralegal, a woman named Renee Barton, whose name I finally learned, were both charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and forgery. Kevin's real estate license was suspended pending criminal proceedings. The preliminary estate filing Daniel had submitted was formally vacated by the court, accompanied by a judicial note citing bad faith submission based on fabricated evidence. Daniel faced the most serious consequences. He was charged with conspiracy to defraud an elder family member, a felony under Ohio law. His attorney pushed for a plea agreement. The prosecutor accepted, on the condition that Daniel complete 2 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and pay full restitution for all legal fees I had incurred. He was also required to attend an elder abuse accountability program for 1 year. He did not go to prison. That was a choice I had some input on, and I made it carefully. Not for his sake alone, because I had thought long and hard about what justice actually looked like in a situation where the person who wronged you is also someone you once rocked to sleep. Consequences, yes. Destruction, not if it could be avoided. Kevin received 18 months of probation and was ordered to pay damages. His real estate company never fully recovered. Renee Barton's notary license was permanently revoked. The civil suit Patricia filed against all three resulted in a judgment of $92,000 in my favor, drawn from Kevin's business assets and Renee's professional insurance, which existed precisely for this kind of misconduct. That money I divided. $40,000 went to a local elder abuse legal aid fund. The rest I used to finally restore Robert's woodworking bench, not to use it, but to preserve it. Properly, because some things are worth protecting. Daniel and I did not speak for 7 months. When he finally wrote to me, it was a letter, not a call. 3 pages, handwritten. He didn't explain or excuse. He said he had been in financial trouble for 2 years and had made choices he couldn't take back. He said the worst part of sitting through the legal process wasn't the judgment or the probation. It was watching the footage from my garage, hearing himself described as someone who had set all of this in motion and understanding what he had become without realizing it. I read the letter twice. I put it in a box. I didn't write back that week, or the next, but I kept the letter. My life in the 2 years since has become something I didn't anticipate. Brian Kowalski and I developed a workshop through his agency, Know Your Rights, Protect Your Home, that we now teach monthly to seniors in the Dayton area. I've heard from women in their 70s who drove across 3 counties to attend because they suspected something was wrong in their own situation and didn't know who to trust. I sit with them and I tell them exactly what I wish someone had told me. Your instincts are not confusion. Your awareness is not paranoia. If something feels wrong, it probably is, and you have the right, the absolute right, to find out. Gary still delivers my mail. He stops sometimes and asks how things are going. I always tell him honestly, because he was the one who started it. A man doing his job who decided to say something he wasn't sure he should. I've thought about that a lot. How much depends on one person deciding to speak up. Carol and I still have coffee every Tuesday. We go at the same time, to the same cafe. I leave at 9:15 and come back at noon, and I no longer check my phone while she's talking. I know what's in my garage. I know what's in my house. I know what's in my life. I had it rekeyed in November. All of it. New locks, new codes, a security system that alerts my phone. Not because I'm afraid, but because I am done with the idea that security is something I have to earn by being convenient for other people. Somewhere in a box in my bedroom, next to Robert's reading glasses and the last birthday card he ever signed, there's a letter from my son that I have not answered yet. I don't know if I will. I know that love and accountability are not opposites. I know that you can grieve a person who is still alive. I know that the house on this street in Dayton, Ohio, with its stuck back door and its creaking floorboard and its rose bushes along the driveway, belongs to me. And I know this. If you are listening to this story, and something in it feels familiar, if there are small things you've been explaining away, people you've been giving the benefit of the doubt, moments where someone made you question your own memory, trust yourself. Write it down. Get a camera if you need to. Call an attorney. Tell a neighbor. You are not too old to fight, and you are not too confused to win. The people who want to take from you are counting on you to doubt yourself. Don't. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. If this story meant something to you, please give it a like and leave a comment. I read every single one, and I'd love to know where in this country you're listening from tonight. Stay safe, stay sharp, and never let anyone make you small.